So today, I want to share a story with you that is going to change everything about how you see your migraine journey. And more importantly, it's going to explain why nothing has worked. Because if you're like most women that I talk to, you have spent years, maybe decades, trying to get to a destination called migraine freedom. You have tried chiropractors and acupuncturists and massage therapists. You've tried meds, Botox, nerve blocks, supplements. You have seen neurologists, functional medicine doctors, and done so many more things, right? You spent thousands of dollars. You put in countless hours, and you're still not there. Today, I'm going to explain why, and it has everything to do with understanding who actually flies the plane. All right, imagine this. Imagine you're about to take a flight from New York to London. You get to the airport, you check your bags, you go through security, you board the plane, you settle into your seat, you're ready to go, right? Excited, maybe a little bit nervous, but you're ready to go to your destination. Then the captain jumps on the loudspeaker and says, "Hey folks, welcome aboard. I just want to let you know, I'm actually the guy who loads the luggage. But I've been around planes for years. I've watched them take off. I've talked to a couple pilots. I figured, how hard can it be? Let's give this a shot." What would you do? You'd be unbuckling your seatbelt and sprinting for the exit. You'd grab your carry-on and get off that plane as fast as humanly possible. Because there's no way you're trusting your life to someone who isn't trained to fly. But here's what I need you to hear. That's exactly what you've been doing with your migraines. When it comes to your migraine journey, there are three types of people involved. We've got the ground crew, we've got the flight attendants, and we have the pilot. And each one has a very specific role. And understanding what they can and can't do is everything. So let's start with the ground crew. In the world of migraines, the ground crew is your chiropractors, acupuncturists, massage therapists, physical therapists, your energy healers, I should say, your nutritionists who give you, the elimination diets, many functional medicine doctors, and some integrative practitioners. Now, before I go any further, I am not saying these people are bad. I am not saying that they have no value. The ground crew is super important. They have a role to play. But let me tell you what the ground crew actually does. Now, in an airport, we know the ground crew is checking the tires and loading the luggage and fueling up the plane. They do a walk-around inspection. They make sure everything looks good on the tarmac so that the plane is prepped for departure. That is valuable work. The plane needs that. But here's what the ground crew does not do. They do not file the flight plan. They don't study the weather patterns. They don't navigate through turbulence. They don't communicate with air traffic control. They don't make critical decisions mid-flight, and they definitely don't fly the plane. So when you go to a chiropractor week after week, month after month, year after year, when you keep getting adjusted and it feels good for a day or two, and then the migraine comes back, when you're, doing acupuncture and you feel a little bit better temporarily, but you're not actually healing. And when you're seeing that functional medicine doctor who's running tests and tweaking supplements, but your migraines are still happening, it's because you are asking the ground crew to fly the plane. They're doing ground crew work, right? Maintenance work, surface level adjustments, but they're not addressing the root cause systematically. They're not navigating the complex inflammatory pathways. They're not eliminating the drivers in the right order. See, they can't get you from New York to London. That's not a knock on them. It's just not their expertise. They can make you feel a little bit better on the ground, make you feel a little safer when you're in that plane, but they can't fly you to your destination. All right, now let's talk about the flight attendants. In the migraine world, your flight attendants are your medications, right? Things like Imitrex, Nurtec, Ubrelvy, Topamax, Aimovig, Emgality, all your medications. They're your neurologist who prescribes those medications. Your Botox injections, your nerve blocks, your supplements like magnesium, CoQ10, riboflavin, butterbur, your ice packs, your heating packs, your essential oils, all your gadgets like the cephaly, the migraine glasses, the earplugs, the green light therapy. The flight attendants are your IV infusions, and even some surgeries. All the things that help you survive the journey. Now, let me tell you what flight attendants actually do. You know this already, but think about it. On a real flight, flight attendants, they welcome you aboard with a smile. They show you where your seat is. They bring you a pillow and a blanket. They hand you snacks and drinks. They make the flight more comfortable, and they help you feel safe when there's turbulence. They make the journey bearable. But here's what flight attendants don't do. They don't file the flight plan. They don't check the weather. They don't navigate the plane. They don't decide the route. They don't communicate with the air traffic control, and they definitely don't fly the plane. So when you're taking Imitrex every time you get a migraine, when you're on preventative medication that dulls the pain but doesn't stop the migraine, when you're getting Botox every 3 months, and it kind of helps, but not 100%, and when your neurologist keeps adding medication after medication or switching meds or upping the dose, but nothing actually stops the migraine, when you're taking magnesium and using ice packs and doing all the things to manage the pain, it is because you have been relying on the flight attendants to get you to your destination. They're comfort providers. They are symptom managers. They are Band-Aid appliers. They can make the flight more bearable, but they can't get you where you want to go because managing symptoms is not the same as eliminating the cause. Surviving the flight is not the same as landing safely at your destination. The flight attendants, they can hand you a pillow, but they can't fly you to London. And here's what I need you to understand about neurologists specifically. Most neurologists, they are fantastic at what they do. They're trained in the brain. They're trained in medication. They're trained in acute symptom management. But the vast majority of them, they're not trained in root cause elimination. They're not trained in inflammation pathways. They're not trained in gut healing or hormone balancing or nervous system regulation. They're flight attendants with a prescription pad. They can make you more comfortable, but they can't get you to migraine freedom. All right, now let's talk about the pilot. In the migraine world, the pilot is a migraine specialist who understands the root cause of chronic migraines. It's someone who knows the 6 inflammatory pathways, those inducers. It's someone who knows the drivers like hormones and gut and autoimmunity and nervous system. It's someone who knows the genetic switches and how to turn them off. Someone who has flown this route hundreds of times. Someone who doesn't just treat your symptoms, they eliminate the cause. Now, let me tell you what an actual pilot does, right? Just a review, you know what the pilot does, but a real pilot, they actually file the flight plan before you even get on the plane. A real pilot studies the weather patterns along the route and checks for turbulence and knows how to navigate around it. A real pilot communicates with air traffic control every step of the way. They make real-time decisions based on conditions. They adjust the route when necessary, and they know exactly how to get from point A to point B. And a real pilot has done this journey so many times, they could do it in their sleep. The pilot doesn't just make you comfortable. The pilot actually gets you to your destination. And not just any pilot. You need the right pilot, right? Because here's the thing. You don't want someone who read a book about flying. You don't want someone who isn't licensed to fly commercial, which requires 1,500 flight hours and rigorous exams. You don't want someone who's Googled how to fly a plane. You don't want someone who talked to a couple pilots at conferences and decided to give it a shot. And you don't want someone who has their private pilot license, the lowest pilot license, versus someone who has their commercial, the highest. You want a trained, experienced, specialized pilot, someone who has logged thousands of flight hours, someone who knows this route inside and out, and someone who has successfully landed hundreds and hundreds and thousands of passengers at their destination. Would you put your mom on a plane with a pilot who learned to fly from Google? Would you put your daughter on a plane with someone who read a book about aviation and decided to try it? Would you put your best friend on a plane with someone who they kind of know how to fly? Of course not. So why are you trusting your health, your quality of life, your future to random advice from the internet? Why are you trusting people who don't specialize in migraines? And I'm talking about specializing in migraine freedom, not migraine management. Why are you trusting people who don't understand root causes? For the last 5, 10, 20, 30 years, you've been asking the ground crew to fly the plane. You've been relying on the flight attendants to get you to your destination. You have been trusting self-proclaimed pilots who don't actually know the route. And that's why you're still stuck. It's not because you haven't tried hard enough. Goodness knows you have tried so hard. And it's not because migraine freedom doesn't exist. It's not because you're broken. It's because you never had an experienced pilot. So what do you do? What do we do now? If you've been going to chiropractors and acupuncturists and massage therapists for years and you're still getting migraines, if you've been on medication after medication and nothing actually stops them, if you've tried functional medicine practitioners who run lots of tests and give you lots of supplements, but you've been working with them for more than 3 months and they don't have a clear flight plan, if you've been seeing neurologists who keep switching your prescription but you're still suffering, then maybe it's time you actually got an assessment. Not just an appointment, but an actual migraine assessment. Because here's what most people don't realize. Before you even step foot on a plane, there's a whole assessment that happens. The pilot doesn't just show up and start flying. They assess the weather conditions, the wind patterns, the fuel levels, the weight distribution, the route options, the potential obstacles. They gather all the information they need to create the safest, most effective flight plan possible. And that is what a real migraine breakthrough assessment does. Now, it's not about talking you into something. It's about determining where you are right now, where you've been, the things you've actually tried, what's been keeping you stuck, what the actual obstacles are, what kind of support you actually need, and whether you need a pilot or if ground crew work will get you there. And if you do need a pilot, whether I'm the right one or not for your journey. Because here's the thing. Not everybody needs a pilot. Some people really do just need a little ground crew work. Maybe some body work, nervous system support. Maybe that'll get you there. Some people really can get by, maybe with just a flight attendant. Maybe the medication they're on is working well enough and that is okay with the way they want to work it. But if you've been stuck for years, if you spent thousands of dollars on ground crew work and flight attendant support, and you're still not at your destination, then you probably need a pilot. And you need to make sure it's the right pilot. And that's what the assessment is for. It's not for me to convince you to work with me. It's for both of us to determine what you actually need, whether I'm the right person to help you get there, and what the flight plan would actually look like. Because the worst thing that you could do is get on another plane with another person who can't actually fly or isn't going to take you where you want to go. If you want to get to London, you don't want to be dropped off in the middle of the ocean. You want to get to London. You've definitely wasted enough time. You've spent enough money. You've suffered enough. You deserve to know exactly who you're trusting with your migraine freedom journey. So here's what I want you to ask yourself. Who's been flying your plane? And where's it gotten you? If you want to get from New York to London or you want to get from New York to California, have you made it the whole way? Or have you kind of gotten part of the way and then gotten stuck? If you're done asking the ground crew to fly the plane, if you are done relying on the flight attendants to get you there, if you're ready to find out what kind of support you actually need and who the right person is to help, then go ahead and schedule your free migraine breakthrough assessment so that we can actually assess your unique situation and uncover what's been keeping you stuck. There's zero pressure. There's no pushing. It's just a real conversation about whether we can help you finally reach your destination. Now, the link's in the show notes. Go ahead and grab that so you can stop asking the ground crew to fly your plane. And you can stop relying on the flight attendants to get you there. Grab your assessment so you know exactly what you need and who can actually get you there. You deserve to actually arrive at your destination.